Alright guys, today I'm going to be explaining everything I've got going on in my build as an electric focused monk and how it carried me all the way to the end game. First we're going to talk about the skill points, then we're going to go into the passives, and I'm going to give you a brief rundown in the very beginning, and then afterwards I'll go into a little bit more detail as to why I chose what I did and how everything kind of interacts with each other. Now, if you guys don't have all of these slots for support gems, if you don't have 4 or 3, you don't have to use them all. I will give you my best assumption as to what you should be picking first, and go from there. As you progress, you can throw in whatever you feel comfortable with. So first off, we have the quarterstaff, where we have close combat, overpowered, ruthless, and super critical. We move into the Tempest Bell afterwards, which contains expanse, culling strike, magnified effect, and electrocute. Charge Staff has Persistence, Primal Armament, and Lightning Infusion, Siphoning Strike, and we're rocking into the Inevitable Critical, Coursing Currents, and Profusion. Killing Palm is a fantastic ability, and I'm just using Life Drain and Shock Siphon on that thing. Then we have Tempest Flurry with Crescendo, Martial Tempo, and Innervate. Gathering Storm as a little bit of an extra ability. I don't use it very often, but when I do, it's nice to have it. We have Momentum, Window of Opportunity, and Lightning Exposure, and another ability that's kind of just extra thrown on top of things that was not really a primary part of the build. It's just a leftover, like if you have time for it, just throw it down and let it do its thing. It's Orb of Storms. This is rolling with the Neural Overload, excuse me, and then Conduction as well. Now to start off with the passives, we're rocking the Agilate of Kalua. We are into Darkness, and then Embrace the Darkness, Darkness Once Mo, and then Grasp the Void. Now to start off with the regular weapon passives, we are rocking the top half of the monk skill tree as of right now. We're rocking skill speed into attack damage, into more flow like water for more attack speed, and cast speed as well. Then we have a little bit of the evasion rating and the maximum energy shield, which is going to be very valuable. We have flow state, which increases mana regen, and skill speed, which is phenomenal. You can't have enough of that. You will be using a lot of mana under certain circumstances. When you're wailing on a boss, you're going to want a little bit of mana regen, and what this doesn't make up for, your potion should be able to do so. We have Crashing Wave as well with this tree, increasing our critical strikes and all that stuff, and then we are rocking the electricity tree right up here. Nice and clean, nice and easy. Now we're gonna need a lot of dexterity and a lot of intelligence as well, especially if you want to rock a different spell. Say it's a spell from like the witch's tree that you just want to throw in on the sideline just for extra funsies. You're gonna need like 100 and something intelligence, so you're gonna need some nodes of that. But first of all, we have 2 nodes of dexterity. I just have this 1 extra point in energy shield right there. You can take this entire tree, especially if you feel like you need a little bit more survivability. But then we have 2 intelligence trees. We're gonna go back to these side bits here in a second, but then we have dexterity, dexterity, and dexterity into this gem socket. Now you can fit whatever you'd like in here. If you happen to have something that revolves around chaos or cold, excuse me, not cold, don't look at that. If you happen to have something that revolves around chaos or shock or duration or electrocution or lightning damage or even critical, that would be fantastic. We're not really doing anything with shock, we're not doing anything with fire. If you have a little bit of something like that on your weapon, if say it's just an extra passive, that would work too. But if you want to jump to the left, we have more intelligence, 2 of them to be specific, and 1 more dexterity. And then we've got a whole tree of chaos damage. Now, this leads all the way up, and it just gives flat chaos increase. This middle segment here is based on wither, which is not necessarily something you should be focused on as a monk. If you have an application for it, by all means take it, because it's right there. Now, if you want to go back down to this T again, and we find here that we have more dexterity all the way down until we get to this quarterstaff tree, we picked up the entire lightning tree. This thing's fantastic. This buffs like just straight lightning damage, and also gives you a chance to reapply shock if you consume it on an enemy. Very useful, very clean and easy. And then it's a little bit of penetration here down at the bottom as well. This will help you in the later game when enemies start gaining higher resistances against elements. Now we have another chaos tree right here, which is going to be really useful. If you have the points, by all means throw it into that. Another crit tree as well, and I forgot to mention that up here there is a crit tree up here as well. Now it does say on these 2 trees that it reduces an aspect of this. So this one specifically reduces your critical damage by 20%. However, this one reduces your critical chance by 20%, but the positive outweighs the good, in my opinion. If you are able to get both of those points, they will end up at a net positive, and they get pretty good too. Now, as far as this entire quarterstaff tree goes, I recommend the whole thing. It's fantastic. This is going to give you attack speed in these 3 middle points. And then we have Whirling Assault with even more attack speed and knockback. I'll let you know why knockback is important later. And Stun, of course, is pretty obvious. It's really beneficial. Now, this top piece, one with the river, gives you 30% increased defenses while wielding a staff, and 30% increased stun buildup with quarterstaffs as well. Very, very useful, especially the defensive parts once you get into the later parts of the game. If you need more defense, you can sacrifice a little bit of your chaos damage, and I'll explain why later. But you can go for certain trees like this with the evasion and the energy shield, and I think there's another one. We found this one right here, and that's about it as far as like the most convenient trees go, but I'm sure it wouldn't be too difficult to find some more. Like there is some down here, some more energy shield and evasion right there. And if you're willing to, you can jump down here as well. There's a pretty decent shield and evasion rating system here with some more crit. It's very, very nice to have. As far as the southern half of this quarterstaff tree goes, you have a little bit of increased accuracy, which isn't like the most valuable thing, but you do get 25 points of dexterity from this one martial artistry, and then a crit damage bonus as well, which is really, really valuable. It's a great node. Increased crit damage bonus from these two, and chance from these two as well. Then you have one with the storm, which consumes power charges. Actually, it buffs what you consume as for power charges, so you don't have to rock this in the build, but I would recommend you do because I have found it to be really useful. Every single time you consume a power charge, it essentially gives you double your value from that power charge. So if you have one of them and you consume it, it acts as two, giving you double the damage. Fan-freaking-tastic. You can't go wrong with that. Now, if we want to go back to this little cross section here, let's go down first to focus on the electricity. We have an intelligence node. A little bit of strength, because you will need a little itty-bitty of that just for wielding certain weapons and a couple of different skills that are going to require just a little bit of strength. I think we are sitting at 22 strength, 121 dexterity, and 80 intelligence. So however you find the need to get those, you can do that. And you can skip out on certain nodes if you have armor that gives you buffs in your intelligence, dexterity, or strength, whatever it is. But anyway, we're going down here to this shock tree. This is not necessarily boosting your damage itself, but it does provide you chance to shock, which is going to be very valuable. Shocking an enemy allows you to do 20% increased damage, which is already super great. This is also going to give you cast and attack speed and more increased magnitude for your shock and critical chance against shocked enemies, and it's just really, really beneficial. You're going to need this. I think that this tree and this tree go very well together. If you can get both of those in full, you're kind of rocking and rolling. It's hard to not just be zipping and zapping every single enemy. Now, back up to this cross section here. This is an entire critical chance tree. We just have one intelligence node here. But this entire critical chance tree is offering chance, dexterity increases, we have damage on the top half, we have more intelligence there, and even more damage if you've dealt critical strikes recently. And this entire tree is going to be very valuable. You can pick and choose what you do and do not want here if you don't have enough points, but if you do, I recommend getting the entire tree. And then we jump across to get this sapphire, this jewel socket, and right now we have a sapphire in there, which just has increased shock chance and energy shield recharge. Then we jump across into this chaos tree, which provides all increased chaos damage. This one even gives a little bit of movement speed. Now, it also reduces your resistance to chaos damage, so be careful with that. If you're having an issue by getting slammed with chaos, then I would recommend maybe not picking this one up. But if you just need the raw damage, this is a pretty good jump. It's 29% and 7% increased attributes too, which is pretty valuable. This one here as well, Event Horizon, 53% increased chaos damage. That's massive. However, you do lose 3% of your life and energy shield when you use a chaos skill. Now, in my build, personally, we are not using any chaos skills, so this isn't hurting us. But if you happen to be doing that, just watch out for that. Make sure you're not going to put yourself too far over the threshold of dying. That's about it for the passives, aside from some spots that I don't have points in that I would recommend you jump into if you have the points to do it. I already mentioned these two crit trees up here on the edges of this. There's also a little bit of crit chance and some evasion down here. If you need to, you can grab some extra attribute points, and it's really not too far away from where we are with this lightning tree already. And there's also some more evasion and shield right here. Another spot you can go aside from this one evasion and energy shield tree is right in here. There's another crit chance and crit damage bonus from this 4-node tree. And then you scroll all the way up to around this corner. This whole corner is pretty nice. You can take stun threshold if you're having issues with that, if you want a little bit bit more survivability. But if you do not need that, we have another little itty bitty lightning tree here, giving you some mana regen too, which is always going to be a little bit more useful, and magnitude of shock, which is also very valuable. Then we have some more nodes that you can pick up, and another itty bitty chaos tree. This chaos tree I don't believe has any negatives to it. It's just skill effect duration, which is going to be really valuable for certain things like your charged staff. Now down below that chaos tree we have the critical strike chance and damage as well. And then if you need, you can grab this tree as well for some more energy shield. This is going to be straight energy shield. Now it also gives mana regeneration, so if you don't need the mana regeneration, I recommend trying to find your mana shield somewhere else, but this is going to be very valuable if you have that need. Alright, now we're going to go into a little bit more detail about these passives, and we'll talk about the skills too afterwards and how they work together. We are rocking the darkness, so maximum increased darkness. This is a little bit of a confusing concept. This one specifically replaces your spirit with this thing called darkness, right? Base max darkness is 100, and it scales up for every time you level up. You gain 5 max darkness per level. So if you're level 100, you have a base of 500. Plus the regular base. So basically what darkness does is it acts as another shield on top of your actual energy shield. So this will take priority when you take damage. So as soon as you get hit, that'll be the first thing to go down. Now this is called unreserved darkness. Currently we have 528, which is about 26% increased damage just based off of this one passive right here. And it is strictly as chaos damage, which if you don't know does double damage to shields as well. However, this, when it goes down, when you take damage and this gets hit, it will take away from this maximum reserve, causing it to be reserved, right? So you're going to lose that bonus damage. So in order to get the most out of your damage from chaos here with the Grasp of the Void, you want to not take any damage, or even just wait a moment for this shield to refresh before you engage the next group of enemies. Now, if you have more passive points for the Ascendancies, I would recommend taking even more increased darkness, because that is going to give you even more damage to go with. Now, if you have 2 more points than I do for Ascendancy Despair, I would recommend this tree right here, 11% extra chaos damage, and 23% chance to gain 25% damage with extra hits as chaos damage, 13% chance to gain 50% of damage, and 7% chance to gain 100% of damage. Now, I do believe that these stack, so you have a slight chance to gain all 3 of those benefits at once, even 2 at a time as well. This is fantastic, and this will scale off of all of those other chaos trees that we've seen already. And if you have all the points, you can even go into extra skill speed and into the breach and more skill speed again, and then duration of Flames of Kahlua. If you don't know what the Flames of Kahlua are, basically this waking dream opens up an aura around you, and which allows you to see these flames on the ground. There's blue flames that restore mana, red flames that restore health, and purple flames that give you a bonus to your chaos damage, and it stacks up to 5 times. This will extend the duration of how long that bonus lasts, so I think it ends up being 10 seconds in total, and stacking up to 5 times that damage is very, very valuable, especially scaling with all your increased chaos damage. Now, the reason we're rocking Evasion and Energy Shield is because, one, they're very valuable nodes when they are paired together, because they do typically come together. You get a 24% increase to both of them with just this one node, and that seems to be a theme across multiple different nodes all across this tree. You get the same value from each of those stats, so pairing Energy Shield and Evasion together work very well. Now, the Energy Shield is strictly for survival. Okay, the bigger that shield is, the longer you're going to be able to live when you're getting hit and if you get caught slipping. The evasion itself is actually going to be really valuable for preventing you from using your chaos damage up. So your darkness reserve will be protected by your evasion. It's like another shield on top of it almost. And depending on where your evasion is, mine is currently at 49%, which is not fantastic. You can get this much, much higher if you ditch a little bit of damage with chaos and you fill in some of these evasion trees. I think you can get to like 65 to 70%, which is very good. That's kind of ideally what you're after. If you can dodge 3/4 of the attacks that are, even 2/3 of the attacks that are coming your way, you're in good shape. But as far as the element itself goes, electricity is very valuable. Not only are the skills fantastically good, but the trees themselves provide many, many needed bonuses for them, and shock actually allows you to do 20% extra damage to your enemies when they are afflicted by that ailment, making it really easy to do very large amounts of damage very quickly. And of course, you can't go wrong with the critical strike trees. So everything else is pretty self-explanatory aside from this one tree here. If you have any questions, by all means, let them down below in the comments section. I'll be happy to answer them for you, or at least do my best to. But there is a little bit of an interesting thing going on here with these knockback distances. So we have a passive from a skill, and if we go up here, we are going to get into the skills here very shortly, but if we go up here and read this Tempest Bell, this actually has an increased AoE effect whenever an attack causes knockback. So the more knockback you have built into your kit, the larger your Tempest Bell aura is going to be. And not only that, but it scales up with things like Expanse, which give 50% more area, and Magnified Effect, which give 40% more area. It's really, really beneficial, and I can't recommend it enough. I think these are very valuable, especially since it leads up to this tree with defense and more stun buildup. It's hard to go wrong there. Now, I won't go over too much with the quarterstaves themselves just because we're not really using this too much. However, we do have the close combat, which deals extra damage, and we have more stun buildup, and 100% increased critical strike damage bonus with a little bit less crit chance. Now, for charged staff, I would recommend trying to extend the duration of it because I think inherently it is very short at 6 seconds on standard. Increasing that by 40% is going to be really valuable, especially as you gain more stacks from your power charges, and we have a little bit more elemental damage from the primal armament, which is super valuable. The more elemental damage you do with charged staff, the better, especially since it's actually amplified by Temple Bell. And then we just have some more lightning infusion, so we gain 25% bonus damage as lightning. So, and then this will also take away a little bit of extra damage, so it'll take cold and fire damage away from this attack. You're not too concerned about this, but if your staff does have either fire or cold damage on it, it will take a little bit of that value away because this does buff your auto attacks. And speaking of buffing your auto attacks, we have Tempest Flurry. So this attack is actually really sweet. It's kind of like a super fast auto attack. Now it takes your melees and it makes them pop out really quickly. And so it attacks 1 time, 2 times, and then it attacks a 3rd time. And on that 3rd strike, it actually hits 3 separate times. So it counts as 6 attacks, allowing you to actually stack the combo of your Tempest Bell very quickly. So if you're using this to charge your combo for the Tempest Bell, you're going to be having that bell down almost constantly. It's very hard to not stack that thing up. We have increased attack speed for Tempest Flurry as well, so this is going to be very valuable. It actually allows you to pump out more attacks, and so do other passives such as this. So increased attack speed with quarterstaves, this actually counts towards bumping that bonus up. And Innervate is our last one. This allows our attacks to gain 35% of damage as lightning damage for 3 seconds when killing a shocked enemy with a supported skill, but you will be constantly killing enemies with this attack. This is going to be your main spammable. This will be something that I would recommend putting on a button that you have a strong finger with. Don't put it on your shift key because your pinky will get very tired very quickly. Put it on your mouse button or something like that. Now, to gain the stacks that we are looking to use in charged staff, the power charges specifically, we have Siphoning Strike and Killing Palm. These are 2 different ways. To start out, we have Killing Palm, which allows you to execute an enemy. So when an enemy gets low, it'll actually show you a little blue dot above their heads, and it'll allow you to call that enemy. So essentially, you dash to them, you punch them in the face, and you take a power charge from them. Now we're buffing this with recovering our life by 12% for over 4 seconds, which is really valuable, especially if you're just wrapping up a fight. If there's only a couple enemies left and you're low on health, this is great to kind of boost your health recovery there. And then we also have Shock Siphon, which recovers 4% of our energy shield with a supported skill that deals a killing blow. And this is specifically on shocked enemies. So now I would say that if you have a shocked enemy in front of you, I would highly recommend using Siphoning Strike instead, because that is another way to gain stacks. So this is another dash attack, and you use your quarterstaff to bash the enemy. If that enemy is shocked, this will consume that shock to grant you a power charge. Now, we put Profusion as a support gem on this bad boy to give us a 50% chance to grant an additional power charge. And the reason we put it on Siphoning Strike instead of Killing Palm is because not only does Siphoning Strike do significantly more damage than Killing Palm, but it is much more spammable. We're going to constantly be seeing enemies that are shocked, and very rarely will we see enemies that are actually in threshold of execute with Killing Palm. Now, Siphoning Strike actually provides a little bit of a shockwave around an enemy that you hit who is shocked. So when you grant yourself that power charge, it'll actually do a little burst of area damage. If that area damage happens to shock nearby enemies, this Coursing Currents is going to be really valuable as well, because any enemy in that 2.5 meter radius will have a 50% chance to also become shocked as well, allowing you to further pull more stacks if you need to, or just slam them down for that extra 20% bonus damage that shocked allows. Now, to top it all off, we have Inevitable Critical, which provides 25% increased critical hit chance each second up to 100%. So in 4 seconds of not using this ability, you'll have a 100% guaranteed critical hit chance, and this is lost whenever you actually hit that critical, and it resets and counts down from 4 seconds again. Now, this is not an overly spammable ability. You can do it if you would like to, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's mostly just for stacks, so you're almost always, if not actually always, going to 100% chance guaranteed to crit strike with the siphoning strike itself. Now we have 2 more skills left. One of them is a fun little engagement tool and a get out of jail free card if you're in a little bit of a pickle, and the other one is just for a little bit of bonus damage. That get out of jail free card is called Gathering Storms. This is a little bit of an interesting ability. So it has some different dashes. It has like a short dash, it has a long dash, and it has a perfect dash. The short and the long dash, don't touch them. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is hold down the button so it's perfectly timed, so that you can actually get yourself a full long dash. And not only is it going to do bonus damage by doing that, but it's going to provide a large area of shock on the ground. And that electricity is going to instantly shock enemies that are in the area, allowing you to do whatever it is that you do with your kit to begin with. This can be used as a fun engagement tool, even though I find myself not needing it very much. I prefer to engage with Tempest Flurry or Siphoning Strike, but you can use this to escape as well. Now, if you don't know, this will actually push you directly through enemies. There will not be any sort of body block. I'm sure you've experienced this, where you get trapped in a corner or surrounded by enemies and you cannot move and get out. This will allow you to leave. You can dash straight through enemies, and you can even dash through ice walls if your unsuspecting teammates have thrown them down in front of your face. Now, to boost Gathering Storms, we have Momentum. This allows you to do bonus damage the farther you travel, and trust me, you'll be traveling farther than 2 meters if you use this properly. Not only that, but we have a shorter perfect timing window. Now, this isn't necessary, but if you want a little bit more damage, 50% to be precise, you can slap this bad boy on there, and it'll just cut the timing window down by 25%. Now we have lightning exposure as well, which is fantastic. It's going to allow you to do 25% less damage, which isn't awesome, but we already have so much boosted damage from our other 2 support gems that that's not really a big deal. This will produce lightning exposure on any enemies that are shocked, and if you provide the perfect timing for your dash, this will actually guarantee shock every single enemy that is in the aura of your wake. Moving on to Orb of Storms. This is just a throw it down on the ground and let it do its thing kind of ability. You don't really have to use this, but I threw it on just for funsies. It's just a big aura that basically throws out a little bit of shock and lightning every time you attack within that aura. If you really want to make the most bang for your buck, you put this thing down on top of your Tempest Bell and use your Flurry and your Charged Staff on top of the Tempest Bell. That's going to be very valuable. Now, as far as support gems go for this, we have Neural Overload, which electrocutes primed enemies on hit. Now, a primed enemy is an enemy that has reached at least 40% electrocution buildup. Magic enemies are instead primed at 60% and rare at 70% and unique at 80%. This isn't a big deal. This isn't something you're going to make the most out of all the time, but it is nice to have, especially on the back burner, and if you can't find room for it on any of your other abilities like I have found myself, then it's nice to just slap it on here. And we have Electrocute after that as well, so a lightning damage from supported skills contributes to electrocution buildup. Supported skills deal 40% less damage. You're not so much concerned about the damage from this ability. It doesn't do much to begin with. At this point, I have it at level 9, and it only deals 11 to 32 damage. It's more about the chain lightning to produce shock and electrocution. So there you go. Alright guys, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you learned something. I hope I learned something from you. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And if you want to teach me something too, by all means, hit me up. Don't forget to subscribe and follow, and whatever platform you're on, we have a Twitch as well. We like to do a bunch of live streams, so I'll catch you later. Bye.